Okay. Welcome to the final presentation of today's last session. I'm Ozlem Balkan. I'm a PhD student at Bahcesehir University in Istanbul. And today I'm going to present you teacher perceptions about STEM education experience during COVID-19 pandemic. Table of contents. Okay, so as we all experience, COVID-19 affected educational systems in many dimensions, but however, both students and teachers, they rapidly adapted to online education. On the other hand, it's still unpredictable, the course of pandemic. Even 2 years later today, now we don't know what will happen. So we don't know what will happen to educational contexts. So it's really crucial to examine and evaluate what we do today in terms of teaching, and it's important to analyze their effectiveness. So the first-hand experience of STEM teachers are important in this case. The literature review includes teacher perceptions about STEM education. So when we look at their perceptions, they generally focus on inquiry, interdisciplinarity, technology, all four disciplines balancedly equally important, and learning by doing. In terms of online STEM education, different studies revealed online discussions are effective, active learning, technological tools, and real-world problems are effective. Interactive games, problem solving, discussion, parent support are effective in online STEM education. Also, when we look at STEM education and COVID-19 pandemic, there are both opportunities, advantages, and challenges of STEM education during the pandemic. So, based on this, the significance of the study is that STEM studies have critical role to guide adaptations for further conditions, the ones in COVID pandemic. So this study reveals the perceived experiences of teachers in terms of various dimensions. The purpose is examining teacher perceptions about STEM education experience during COVID-19 pandemic. The main research question is, what are the perceptions of in-service teachers about their lived experiences in STEM education during COVID-19 pandemic? The question actually has three dimensions. Their perception on how they design the STEM education practices, which instructional methods and materials they perceive they use, and also what were the perceived advantages and challenges of STEM education practices they experience. This is the theoretical framework for the study, for the themes and I developed. When it comes to method, it's a phenomenological study. That kind of study tries to create a general framework to explain a phenomena. In this case, I will try to create a general frame to explain experiences of teachers in terms of STEM practices. I used structured interviews and snowball sampling method. The selection criteria of the teachers for my study was actively teaching, having STEM experience, that means both having training and having practice on STEM activities, and also another criterion was applying at least one STEM activity during the pandemic. So when we take a look at the data collection process, I started with creating the template for teams and categories. I prepared the interview protocol. I pilot interviewed. Then, in terms of the theoretical framework that I previously presented and my pilot interview, I finalized the themes and categories. Then I conducted 8 interviews with the participating teachers through Zoom platform. And after that step, I made the member checking. I sent the transitions of the interviews to the interviews to make sure that I understood what they said well. And for data analysis, I use deductive analysis. I use NVivo software for data analysis. Then I made translation. I had the expert review. Then I finalized the codebook and the codes. For trustworthiness, I use the strategies of peer debriefing. This study was a part of my lessons that I took as a PhD student. So each week I came across with my friends in the class, and I have them analyze and give feedback to my study. I tried to clarify bias. I did a text description in the full text version of this paper, and I did number checking as I told before. Limitations of the study, as I will say later, the participant profile was very limited because my inclusion criteria was very strict. And also translation, I made the interviews in Turkish and translate them to English. So it's another limitation of the study. So the background of me as and role of me as a researcher is I have experience as a science teacher, but currently I am working as a curriculum development specialist. I defined the STEM education and its contribution in my career in the full text again. I'm an interpretivist researcher. I had a role in developing teams categories. I conduct the interviews, I transcribe them, and I analyze the interviews. So, as I said before, one of the limitations of the study is my participant profile. I put nicknames for the participating teachers to protect their identity. As when we look at the branch and school type, most of the participants almost all of them are from private schools. Only one of the participants is from public school, and mostly they are classroom teachers, and I have 2 science teachers only. When we look at the school level, similarly, most of them are from primary school. I have only 2 elementary science teachers, and the grades of the teachers also range. Okay. As I told before, this was a deductive study. So the themes and categories are shown in the screen. Will shape the results also. The background or why teacher designed or planned to practice STEM education, how they planned them, did they make any collaboration or did they take any support is the first theme and the categories. The context of STEM activities is the another category. What was the activity environment? What was the duration of the activities and how many students attend these activities was another team and categories. Also, the content was the activity only including STEM disciplines or were there any other disciplines? Methods and materials were another theme of my study. I included instructional methods, assessment methods, instructional technology, and product development in this team. Also, advantages and challenges was one of the another teams. Okay, let's take a look at the results for each team. In terms of purpose, mostly teachers preferred active learning and skill development to design a STEM activity. In terms of how they design, they generally adapted the existing plans, the ones they already used before the pandemic, the face-to-face one. And in terms of collaboration and support, teachers mostly took support from education specialists and parents. This result is also one of the reasons that the study includes private school teachers. So let's continue with the quotes. So they explain why they included active learning. Okay, the context, it was in 2021 spring. 7 of them was online. Duration was mostly 3 weeks for online and 3 hours for face-to-face. And student number was around 20. For the face-to-face one, it was a divided class because of the pandemic. So the teacher had half class number, and the content mostly included almost all the disciplines. Surprisingly, most of the teachers included Turkish language as additional discipline to STEM activities, and skills such as research, awareness for people, we can say empathy, was included. And this is, I think, one of the most important results of the study. For instruction, as we can see from the research also, they used problem-based learning, question and answer, 5E model, and research-based learning, project-based learning mostly. For assessment, they use self-evaluation and peer evaluation, analytical rubrics, gamification, KWL chart, feedback from students. For materials, they use different kind of instructional technology for different purposes. For example, they use Google applications to communicate with students. They created digital documents. They use web tools for interactivity. They use different web tools again to content development and also content presentation. And for the students to create products, to develop product, they generally use recycled materials. Again, there are different codes for it. In terms of advantages and challenges, being flexible was the mostly cited advantage of online and STEM activities, and product development was more easy. Also, in terms of challenges, mostly student tracking was a problematic for teachers because they weren't at the same area with them. It was online, and lack of instant feedback parallel to this was also one of the challenges. Additional ideas are on the screen. They have generally positive ideas. They reported to have generally positive feedback from students, and they try to find technological solutions to the problems they have. Still, there is a contradiction. There was a contradiction among the teachers whether it was possible to effectively integrate STEM activities during the pandemic. In terms of discussion, purpose was active learning. It is similar to the study of Abdulhasem, and skills were also similarly in the focus. Interdisciplinary and problem-based are supported by the literature findings. And community of practice results of Kelly and Knowles is also similar to in-school support, and tracking students was reported to be a problem, but the studies of Yang and Chen et al. Has suggestions to deal with this problem. The recommendations, there is a contradiction about the possibility of effective STEM education during pandemic, especially in online version. This contradiction is worth further investigation. Parent support is highly let's say, cited among my participants, similar to the other scientists. So the attention should be given to the role of parents for the effectiveness of STEM activities. Also, flexible product development was reported as the advantage of online STEM activities. This can be used even after the pandemic to improve face-to-face activity. And also different methods and materials, advantages and challenges were reported by the participants. Those are also worth investigated as similar with the different contexts and different participant profiles. That's all for my presentations. Thank you for your listening.